Butcher of High Hold. Part 2. Built to Break Men. Baldur's Gate Hall of Justice. 21st day of Myrtul in the year 1488. Dale Reckoning. The Hall of Justice in Baldur's Gate had been built to break men. Its marble columns rose into darkness, pale as bone, cold as the verdicts they had witnessed. The vaulted ceiling swallowed sound and gave back only echoes, distorted whispers that made every word feel like a pronouncement from the gods themselves. Along the upper galleries, faces pressed against iron railings, merchants in wool and leather, fishwives with salt still crusted on their sleeves, dock workers who had abandoned their morning labor to crowd the public benches. They had come to see the Lion of the Gate. They had come to stand witness for a man who had bled for them. The architects had understood something fundamental about power, that it was most effective when it made its subjects feel small. But Cedric Laurent did not look small. He stood in the witness gallery with his hands clasped behind his back, his face carved from the same gray stone as the columns, and though the weight of 47 deaths pressed against his shoulders, visible in the set of his jaw, in the stillness that had replaced his soldier's ease, he did not bend beneath it. The tribunal sat on a raised dais of black marble, 7 figures in robes of office. At their center, Lord Aldrich Ravengard leaned forward in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. He was the oldest of the Flaming Fist Lords' Council in the city, his hair gone silver and his face mapped with the campaigns of 4 decades. The scar that bisected his left eyebrow had been earned at Trollclaw Ford, the same battle that had made Cedric's name. They had stood together that day, 2 young officers holding a river crossing against impossible odds. Ravengard still walked with a limp from the wound he had taken there.
Commander Laurent.
Ravengard's voice carried the particular weight of a man who had learned to fill vast spaces with quiet words.
You were the commander at High Hold during the attack. Tell this tribunal what happened.
A murmur rippled through the galleries, heavy with anticipation. Someone called out,
"We're with you, Lion!"
and the words sparked a scattering of applause before the guards moved to silence it. Cedric's gaze moved across the crowd. He found the man who had shouted, a blacksmith, old enough to remember when Cedric had defended the lower city from the Tetherian raiders. The man's jaw was set with the particular stubbornness of someone who had already decided the verdict and found it wanting. Their eyes met briefly. The blacksmith nodded once, fierce and certain.
"The guards at the outer gate were traitors,"
Cedric said. His voice was steady, the voice of a man who had reported casualties before, who had learned to wrap grief in the armor of precision.
"They opened the gates from within, allowing the mercenary force to enter. The attack was coordinated with agents inside the delegation."
And who assigned these traitors to their posts?
The question hung in the cold air. In the galleries, bodies shifted, breath held. Cedric's pause lasted only a heartbeat, but in that heartbeat something moved behind his eyes, a flicker quickly mastered that Ravengard alone seemed to notice. The old lord's fingers tightened against each other.
"I had given Lieutenant Raal full authority over the courtyard,"
Cedric said.
"The guard assignments were his responsibility."
The silence shattered. Kharma's head snapped up from the opposite gallery, his face draining of color. Around him, the crowd stirred like a beast scenting blood, turning, craning, seeking the young officer who had just been named. A woman in a baker's apron made the sign against evil. A merchant whispered something to his neighbor, and the neighbor whispered it to the next man, and the accusations spread through the galleries like fire through dry grass.
Lieutenant Raal.
Ravengard's attention shifted, and Kharma felt the weight of it like a physical blow.
You were responsible for courtyard security. The roster shows a change in guard assignments made in the morning of the attack. New men placed at the outer gate, replacing Gatemaster Aldrich's veterans.
He held up a parchment. Even from across the hall, Kharma could see the seal pressed into red wax at its base, the twin tower crest of High Hold's command authority.
Why did you make this change?
Kharma stared at the document, at the seal, at Cedric, who stood motionless across the gallery, his face revealing nothing. The marble floor seemed to tilt beneath his feet. He gripped the railing to steady himself, and his knuckles went white against the iron.
I didn't.
The words came out strangled, too quiet. He forced himself to speak louder, forced his voice past the tightness in his throat.
I never gave that order. I never changed any roster.
The order bears the seal of command authority.
Then the commander signed it.
Kharma's voice cracked, and he heard the galleries react. A collective intake of breath, a shifting of weight, the creak of benches as hundreds of bodies leaned forward. He was looking at Cedric now, looking at the man who had trained him, trusted him, given him his first real command. And something was breaking apart inside his chest, something that had held together through the fire and the blood and the screaming, something that could not survive this final betrayal.
He signed that order,
Kharma said.
He assigned those men.
Lieutenant?
Ravengard's voice cut through the rising murmur of the crowd.
These are serious accusations.
I know what they are.
Kharma was on his feet before he realized he had moved, his hands shaking, his eyes burning. The crowd around him pulled back, creating a small circle of empty space, as though his grief might be contagious.
He's lying. He's trying to make me responsible for his failure, for his treachery.
He reached into his pocket. The red silk ribbon emerged into the gray light of the hall, bright as arterial blood against the pale marble. Kharma held it high, and something in the galleries shifted, women pressing hands to their mouths, men exchanging glances.
I was in the courtyard when the attack began.
His voice broke on the words, reformed, broke again.
I was doing my duty, fighting, killing. While he sat in the great hall playing diplomat, I was trying to reach.
He stopped, swallowed. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to something raw and terrible.
My fiancée died in that fire. I heard her screaming.
The word tore out of him like something with claws. A woman in the galleries pressed her hand to her mouth.
And I couldn't reach her, the heat.
He was shaking now, the ribbon trembling in his raised fist.
The heat drove me back. I tried, and she burned. She burned while I...
His voice shattered. For a moment he stood there, chest heaving, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. Then something shifted behind his eyes. The grief hardened into rage, and when he spoke again, his voice carried to every corner of the hall.
47 soldiers who trusted him. 15 diplomats. Women and children trapped in the servants' quarters, burning alive while he...
His arms swung toward Cedric, the silk streaming like a banner of accusation.
While the Lion of the Gate let it happen.
He spat the title like poison.
No, not the Lion, not anymore.
Kharma's lips pulled back from his teeth.
The Butcher of High Hold. That's what history should remember. That's what the songs should sing. How Cedric Laurent murdered 47 of his own men and burned innocent women alive because he was too arrogant, too incompetent to see the enemy standing right beside him.
His voice rose to a scream that echoed off the marble columns.
He stands there trying to make me the villain, trying to escape justice by sacrificing his own lieutenant.
The hall had gone silent. Even the shuffling in the galleries had ceased. Every eye moved between the two men, the young officer with his silk accusation, the old commander with his stone expression, and the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Ravengard was watching Cedric. His scarred face betrayed nothing but his eyes. the eyes of a man who had known Cedric for 30 years, who had bled beside him, who understood what it cost to stand in a hall of judgment and let accusations fall like blows. His eyes asked a question that only Cedric could answer. "Is it true?" Cedric looked at Kharma. He looked at the ribbon clutched in a white-knuckled fist, and something cold moved through him. Red silk. He had seen it before, bright against dark curls, worn by a young woman with a trembling voice and uncertain eyes who had asked him to escort her, who had touched his arm and spoken of the Lion of the Gate, who he had dismissed as harmless and handed to his lieutenant like a gift. He looked at a young man who had lost everything, his brothers, his beloved, his faith in the commander he had once admired, and who now needed someone to blame because the alternative was a truth too vast to survive. If Cedric spoke now, if he explained what he had begun to suspect in the days since the attack, what the evidence had slowly revealed, what would happen? The law would not care that Kharma had been deceived. The law would see only a lieutenant who had been compromised, whose weakness had been exploited, whose ring had sealed the order that murdered 47 men. Dereliction of duty. High treason through incompetence. The sentence would be death. Cedric had served the law for 30 years. He had believed in it, bled for it, built his entire identity on its foundation. But the law was not justice. The law was a machine, and machines did not understand mercy. Ravengard was still watching him, still waiting. The silence stretched until it seemed the marble itself might crack beneath its weight.
Commander Laurent.
The old lord's voice was quiet now, meant only for the space between them.
The lieutenant claims you signed this order. What is your response?
Cedric looked at the ribbon in Kharma's hand, at the fury in his eyes, at the grief that would consume him either way. But at least, this way, the grief would not end at the gallows.
I remember now.
His voice emerged calm, almost gentle.
I signed the order. The responsibility is mine.
The hall erupted. Voices rose from the galleries in a wave, shock, protest, denial. The blacksmith with the burned forearms was on his feet, shouting something lost in the chaos. A woman was weeping. Somewhere near the back, a man's voice cut through the din.
It's a lie! The lion would never—
But Cedric had raised his hand, and slowly, unevenly, the noise subsided.
I authorized the roster change,
He continued.
because I trusted intelligence that proved false. I placed those men at the gate because I believed them loyal. The failure was mine. The deaths—
His voice caught, and for a moment the mask slipped, showing something raw beneath.
the deaths are mine to carry.
Ravengard studied him for a long moment. Something passed between them, an understanding, perhaps, or a grief shared across 3 decades of service. The old lord's jaw tightened.
You understand the implications of this confession. Gross negligence resulting in the deaths of 47 soldiers, 15 diplomats, and the collapse of a treaty years in the making.
I do.
The tribunal will withdraw to deliberate.
The 7 robed figures rose. As Ravengard turned to leave, his eyes found Cedric's one last time. He did not speak. He did not need to. The doors closed behind them with a sound like a tomb sealing. The hours that followed were a special kind of torment. The galleries did not empty. If anything, more bodies pressed in as word spread through the city. The Lion of the Gate had confessed. The Lion of the Gate was awaiting judgment. The Lion of the Gate might hang before nightfall. Food vendors appeared at the doors, hawking meat pies and roasted nuts. A puppeteer set up near the eastern entrance and began performing a hasty dramatization of the Trollclaw Ford, the crowd around him swelling with each passing hour. Cedric stood motionless in the witness gallery, a still point in the churning sea of speculation. He did not sit. He did not speak. He watched the play of light through the high windows, the way it crept across the marble floor as the sun moved, the way it caught the dust motes that swirled in the disturbed air, the way it faded toward amber as afternoon wore into evening. Kharma had not moved from his place either. He still held the ribbon and stared at Cedric with an expression of hatred. Around him, the crowd whispered. The voices washed over him and through him, and none of them touched the cold thing growing in his chest. When the tribunal doors finally opened, the hall fell silent so quickly that the absence of sound was almost louder than the noise had been. Ravengard emerged first, his face grave. The other lords followed in a line, their robes rustling against the marble, and took their seats with the ceremony of men about to pronounce sentence.
Commander Cedric Laurent.
Cedric stepped forward. His boots echoed in the silence.
This tribunal has considered your confession and your 30 years of service to Baldur's Gate.
Ravengard's voice carried, but it had lost its earlier formality. He sounded tired. He sounded old.
We have heard testimony of your valor at Trollclaw Ford, where you held a river crossing against odds that should have been impossible. We have heard of the Tetherian raids, where your defense of the lower city saved countless lives. We have heard from merchants, soldiers, and common citizens who owe their livelihoods, their very existence, to decisions you made in moments of crisis.
He paused. His eyes found Cedric's.
We find it difficult to believe that such a man could be capable of deliberate treachery.
A murmur rippled through the galleries, hope and confusion and something that might have been relief.
Your failure appears to be one of judgment rather than malice, a catastrophic error, but not a betrayal.
Ravengard's hands were flat against the table before him, pressing down as though he needed the support.
Therefore, this tribunal renders the following judgment. Commander Cedric Laurent is stripped of rank, stripped of honors, stripped of all assets and properties held within the city of Baldur's Gate. He is exiled from this city in perpetuity. If he is found within the city limits after midnight tonight, he will be executed without trial.
The words fell like stones into still water. The ripples spread outward, gasps, sobs, the low, angry rumble of men who had served under the Lion and could not accept what they were hearing.
The tribunal has spoken.
Ravengard's voice cracked on the final word. He cleared his throat, mastered himself.
This proceeding is concluded.
Cedric inclined his head, a gesture of acceptance, and turned to leave.
No.
The word was quiet, almost a whisper, but it cut through the renewed murmur of the crowd like a blade through silk, and the hall fell silent again. Kharma was standing. The ribbon hung limp in his hand, forgotten. His face had gone white, not with confusion now, but with a fury that seemed to burn from somewhere deeper than rage.
No!
He said again, and his voice began to rise.
You cannot let him walk. You heard what he admitted.
He took a step forward, and the guards at the gallery's edge moved to intercept him. He barely seemed to notice them.
47 soldiers who trusted him.
He was shouting now, fighting against the hands that gripped his arms.
Women and children burned alive. He is the butcher of High Hold, the murderer of innocents.
His voice cracked into something between a scream and a sob.
And you're letting him walk out of here? What kind of justice?
The guards were dragging him back now, but still he fought, still he raged.
He should hang. He should burn the way Angela burned, the way they all...
His voice broke completely. The words dissolved into sounds that were no longer words, grief and fury tangled together into something animal, something that made the people in the galleries look away. Cedric paused at the threshold. He did not turn around. He stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the fading daylight, and his voice when he spoke was quiet enough that only those nearest could hear.
The law has spoken, Lieutenant.
A pause, a breath.
We all must learn to live with its verdicts.
He walked through the doors and did not look back.
Deep runs the strike of our blade. Our hatred will never fade. No mercy dwells in our hearts as we tear their world apart. In our weapons lies our fate, too far gone to hesitate. Let our war cry shake the ground as we hunt them down and down, till our vengeance has been paid in the crimson of our blade. Let our war cry shake the ground as we hunt them down and down, till our vengeance has been paid in the crimson of our blade. Break their chains and break their crown. Watch their mighty towers down. Not by gold or by their plea will our wrath now let them free. We will never tire or yield till their blood stains every field. Let our war cry shake the ground as we hunt them down and down, till our vengeance has been paid in the crimson of our blade. Let our war cry shake the ground as we hunt them down and down, till our vengeance has been paid in the crimson of our blade. Let our war cry shake the ground as we hunt them down and down, till our vengeance has been paid in the crimson of our blade. Let our war cry shake the ground as we hunt them down and down, till our vengeance has been paid in the crimson of our blade.